Bang a Yui.
Hey there, it's Matty, your mortgage maestro. I'm back again. And are you interested in a mortgage but just don't know where to begin? And have you seen this application form and want to run? Yeah, the mortgage process begins with an application just like everything else. But don't be discouraged by all 17 pages. There's so much tech infused in the process today, you may never even realize when exactly you completed this form. Eventually, you'll sign this form at closing. But what's in all this? Well, the Uniform Residential Loan Application, aka the 1003, is the standardized document used in the United States for applying for a residential mortgage loan. It gathers essential information about the people requesting the funds. And here are some of the key sections typically included in the form for all the data requirements. Now, there are 9 sections in all, but we're here to discuss the core 5. Think the who, what, when, where, and why, so you can come correct when you get leverage. First, the who, as in who's going to borrow all this money. So first section is borrower info, and this asks about your personal information from your income and employment and other sources such as retirement that you want to consider when qualifying for the loan. Sounds simple, but we all need to start with the roll call. Are you going to do this on your own? Do you want to add your spouse, a co-signer maybe? For all the parties involved, we're going to need all the same information, which includes a full legal name, social security number, date of birth, 2-year address history, and 2 years of employment. Now, it's going to be a big help to have your complete address and work history for those 2 years. Also a good idea to have the places or people to call to verify your employment, and in the case you're self-employed, your accountant's phone number. Now, you don't need all this information on day one, but having it up front will help you stay organized. A good practice is to have your income worked out on some pen and paper when you call or apply regarding the structure and the length of each. I.e., are you just paid a flat salary? Are you paid hourly? Are you paid overtime? Is any of your income based on performance, like bonuses? Or maybe you're a commission employee or self-employed, and the format will follow the documentation necessary for your income type and per the lender. So now that we've identified who's going to apply for the loan, the next section focuses on your assets and liabilities. Next, the what, meaning your balance sheet. What does it look like? Section 2 asks about things that you own that are worth money that you want to consider to qualify for this loan. It asks about your liabilities or debts that you pay each month, such as credit cards, alimony, or maybe some other expenses. And I say this section mimics the balance sheet because the bank wants to understand and source your down payment, or if there's a gift from a relative to expect on or before this application. Maybe you have stocks you need to liquidate or cash in Bitcoin in order to turn those funds into hard USD you can make due for closing. Or think about it. If you have a bonus that you're expecting, you just haven't received it, it's a good idea to point this out to the lender right now. Also, I recommend to have some of your account numbers or a way to differentiate between several accounts with the same institution. That way you can do it by balance and account number. And last, who owns these resources? Now on the flip, if you don't have a breakdown of every debt you own, most of all your liabilities are going to come from the credit check. So don't be concerned if you don't know what your actual auto loan is to the nearest penny. But it would be a great idea for you to have the details on your student loan, because sometimes those are in deferment or sometimes those change based on your income level. So far for the static, but keep in mind the lender will ask if you have any new credit pending. Say you have a review of your credit checks lately, and any debt that's not registered on the account but identified by an inquiry, they may want to know about. So it's a good idea to kind of recall and remind yourself here how many times you've had your credit checked, and if it has to do with a number of mortgage inquiries, which is perfectly fine. But sometimes there are circumstances when personal debt won't appear on a credit check and you'll want to disclose that. Or maybe for example, a 401k loan and how that payment will impact your qualifying. The second what, as in what real estate do you own? Section 3 asks you to list all properties you currently own and what you owe on them. Now, if you don't own any property, congrats, this section will not apply. But if you do own rental property in your name, residential and/or commercial, the lender will want to know the details, including the value and the rent terms. In this section, real estate can be an asset or a liability depending on if it creates income or a loss, as we sometimes see in real estate. Also, a good idea to understand what mortgage company you're paying and what the current rents are, and what expenses do you have in regards to taxes, insurance, and HOA dues. Now, it could be that your taxes and insurance are paid with the mortgage, but if separated out, you should have access to that data. And last, most HOAs are paid through ACH, but you may never get a bill in the mail. I recommend always requesting a copy of that in advance from the HOA directly so you can inform your loan officer what is paid and when. Number 4, the why. Loan and property. This section asks about the loan's purpose and the property you want to purchase or refinance. If a first-timer, this makes sense. You're buying a place to live and occupy, and in the business we call this a primary residence. But there are also vacation homes and investment properties. The property must be one of these three. Now, you can only have one primary residence at a time, but you could have multiple second homes, although it's just not that common. More often, any additional properties are investment in nature, and if you don't live in it or soon to live in it, like you're buying a larger home, it's important to identify, hey, we're downsizing or we're upgrading our quality of life and we're purchasing a larger and more expensive home. If you're doing something as far as a lateral move, you may want to get behind the who, what, when, where, and why and determine that it is a primary residence, not a second home or investment. And sometimes that's dictated by location. Also, if you're going to be using more than one mortgage to acquire the property, say a home equity loan, and if it's from an outside lender, your lender for the primary is going to need that information. So just like you're supplying the information the first, you're going to supply the second lender, vice versa, the same information so that everybody's on the same sheet of music. Or perhaps you're going to use gift funds for maybe some or all of the down payment. You should identify that right here. Last piece, if you're shopping for a particular property, like a single family, detached, plain vanilla loan, great. But sometimes we see atypical properties. For example, a barndominium or a condo that is not warrantable. This is a great time to discuss that now, because often the setup for the approvals for one type of property and not some of these miscellaneous. So if one of these atypical properties is on your mind, you want to discuss this with your loan officer, because that could change the financing altogether. Number 5, here's the last piece, the where and when, or the declarations. This section asks you specific questions about the property you're funding and your past financial history, because nobody expects the Spanish Inquisition. This part of the app contains yes or no questions on your declarations to occupy the property, if you're going to borrow money, or if you're applying for another loan on another property to use in conjunction of this loan. We'll want to ask if you've had a bankruptcy, foreclosure, in any federal debt, have any judgments, or maybe just you're a co-signer on somebody else's loan. If you answer no to these questions, easy. But if not, you may have some explaining to do. If there's a blemish on your history regarding one of these questions, it's important to know your dates. And if possible, get documentation. Very easy to forget what happened last year, let alone something 5 to 10 years ago. So please keep that in mind. By now, you know the first step on your road to close your first mortgage. As I mentioned in the beginning, much of this data can be automated with most lenders out there now. But sometimes there's people that want to do this by telephone, in person, or by email. There's no right or wrong way to get your information over the line. Then, welcome to the largest and longest debt you'll have in your life. Congratulations.